Hello. So we've talked about the history of the discipline, but before we move on, it might be a good idea to talk about what are we talking about? What's the definition of psychology? Well, we talk about the scientific study of behavior and mental processes. Okay, so we can look at three key points there. One, it's a scientific study. That means we use some pretty specific processes and look at very specific information. That's part of the reason I'm having you read the chapter about research methods as part of this first act or unit. The second key piece is that we're looking at behavior, or the way we behave or act, and that third piece, mental processes, the way we think. Most of the time for this class, we're going to be thinking about that in relation to humans, but we do have one movie relating to animals, and animals can be considered through the same idea. We have three levels of analysis from which we can consider that behavior and mental processes, and they're very deeply and almost perhaps inextricably intertwined. Those three perspectives are biological, social, and biological. I like to think of them as lenses through which we see behavior and mental processes. The psychological influences relate to the way we see the world, the way we process information about it. So that includes learning, which we define as the associations that create relatively permanent changes in behavior. It also includes thinking or cognition, the way we process information, and personality, our characteristic ways of thinking and behaving. That second piece is the biological influence. It's the nature piece of the nature versus nurture debate, and the things that are somewhat hardwired in our body. I kind of crudely think of it as the meat of who we are. And it ranges from the microscopic neurons to the hormones floating in our blood sent out by the endocrine system, moving on to the bigger organs and parts that are in the nervous system and the brain, the sense organs, and then coming back to the complicated inner workings of genetics. So the biological influences are, at this point, pretty hard to ignore. At the same time, we do not exist in isolation, hence the fact that we have a nature versus nurture debate. The presence and behaviors of others does affect us. Those are the social influences we referred to in that last lens. So each of these pieces gives us a unique perspective on behavior, but usually looking at just one creates questions that bring us back to the others. There are a number of topics we'll consider that can't be neatly classified into one area or another. For example, development, changes in the body over time. Intelligence, we'll define that more specifically. Our motivation, what pushes us towards something. Emotions, how do we experience them? Psychological disorders, if we're thinking about it as just biological or just social or just psychological, we can't understand the full range. Similarly, then, we can't understand the treatment or can't effectively offer treatment. So we need to think about all the pieces together. And so it becomes not nature or nurture, but nature and nurture. Our inability to neatly classify things into any one of these lenses or the other just emphasizes that. So what do I want you to take away here? I obviously want you to understand and know the definition of our discipline, but I also want you to understand the different perspectives on behavior, the different influences, and what they relate to and why they're important. Until later, thanks for listening.